Hey guys, I am Ibigandscary. I'm bringing you another StarCraft 2 replay, this time featuring PoSeIdOn in our top left corner, playing our blue Zerg, and in the bottom right we have Jiang, our red Protoss. It is a PVZ, the two extremes. You've got a blue kind of aggressive Zerg, and then you've got the red kind of passive Protoss. Passive because they like to get up more than one base, likes to get up those heavy bundles of joy that we call death balls, and it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be very nice. PoSeIdOn. PoSeIdOn. Oh, it's PoSeIdOn. It's a capital I. I hate it when people do that. Capitalize every other letter because it looks like PoSeIdOn, doesn't it? It totally does. But it's PoSeIdOn, the mythical god of the sea, I believe. Might be wrong on that one. It could be PoSeIdOn because Seldon is the yeah, it's PoSeIdOn. Seldon's that guy from the Big Bang Theory, right? I don't know. I don't watch the show. I do know that it's funny, though. People like it. People like it. Wow. 6 pool goes... Yeah, it's a 6 pool for PoSeIdOn. He's got quite a lot of money saved up, too, so some hyper-aggression coming out of him. Unfortunately, the good old scout from Jiang is going to see it, sees that it's going down. He's got a pylon already placed on the low ground, but I don't think there's going to be a forge fast expand. Definitely a forge is going to go down, but it should be immediately followed by a handful of unit-producing structures just to hold that front door. He's going to need every zealot and cannon that he can produce with all that money. Oof, this is actually going to be really tight. Ohana's pretty big. Very large distance that you can use, you know, just to kind of stay alive as the Zerglings make their way across the map. They don't have speed or anything like that, so it's not like they're going to be on the front door in a matter of seconds, but you know, on the other hand, yeah, they totally will be going to be on the front door in like 5 seconds. It's going to be ridiculous. There's nothing up that can defend him. He's got quite a lot of money, but no pylon up on the high ground. Best he can hope for is to make a... oh, I guess he's going to make a cannon at the probe line to defend his probes there. That's a very wise decision. Taking down the pylon on the low ground, though, instead of going off and dealing any damage to the economic infrastructure. You know, you got to take down those drones first. You really don't want to waste your time on the forge and pylon PoSeIdOn. You want to move up and see what shenanigans are going on at the home base, because you don't know if there was another pylon already placed by the Nexus and you've got a gateway being built there, and if there's 2 gateways chrono boosting out zealots, those Zerglings aren't going to be able to do too much damage. As things are now, though, the static defense has been built in the probe line, them, and the minerals are pretty well defended. He can even afford to get some guys into gas because he just doesn't have to constantly create anything. He doesn't have to constantly create photons, doesn't have to constantly create new units. He's just got to keep himself from being supply blocked, and unfortunately the pylon was placed just a little bit outside of the photon cannon's initial range. But now with the gateway done, he can begin work on that Cybernetics core, and all of a sudden that cheese, that 6 pool, is only mildly successful. It was successful in the fact that it took down a forge and a pylon, and it also scared Jiang to the point where he can't expand. But harvester count, you're very, very behind. He's just now getting gas and just now getting that hatchery. He's got his queen out, so his infrastructure's not terrible. I mean, he just doesn't have the drone count that he needs. He's definitely fallen behind that, and eventually Jiang's going to get up enough zealots, and probably just a single stalker could do it, to take down the last 3 Zerglings, and all of a sudden Jiang's going to have more drones than PoSeIdOn, and he's also going to have a much more intimidating gas income. That zealot is going to go to town and hopefully bait those Zerglings back to the photon cannon, but it looks like PoSeIdOn is a little bit more experienced than that. He's not going to allow that zealot to take down all the Zerglings without at least dealing a little bit of structural damage, but 400 minerals for Jiang gets spent down to the Nexus as soon as that zealot pushes him out. He's got to be feeling on cloud 9. 6 pool is so hard to hold off, especially whenever it's not scouted just absolutely immediately. But fantastic scouting by that probe. Jiang just showing you how it's done. Getting that probe right up there, seeing that the pool was being built so quickly, and then calmly and collectively building the hero of the game, which is our photon cannon. And I say hero because that makes this game go longer. Don't know who wins, but I do know that longer games are more entertaining. Absolutely. 2 gas taken for PoSeIdOn. He's going to be working on that saturation. Probably going to be just building only drones for a very long... No, he's got 4 more, sir. 4 more roaches coming out. I can see that. I mean, he's got to deal with the aggression coming from Jiang. He's got a single stalker to deal with, but I think a handful of Zerglings would have been more cost effective. Yeah, he wants to go to Roaches anyway because, you know, they're a fantastic unit, especially whenever Protoss doesn't have a completed wall off. But Jiang's been working on that too. He's finally got that forge back up and another 2 gateways. His infrastructure's looking fantastic, looking just where he wants to be. He's held on to that harvester lead that he acquired during the failed cheese, and he's even got a robotics facility out, so PoSeIdOn is definitely slipping a little bit. Also overreacting to the failed cheese by throwing up the spine crawlers. He has map control. Those roaches will be able to crush anything coming out of Jiang for the next 4 minutes, especially if it's all just fragile sentries like this. Got to be careful, got to pull them back. There's no cannon there to help hold this front door. All of a sudden, Jiang's front door is very, very weak. No force field there to hold back those roaches, so that's a bit of a misstep. Will he throw down a force field at the top of the ramp? No, he throws it at the bottom to hold them up with the stalker. Ultimately a great decision, because that means those roaches have to engage the photon cannon in order to engage the probes, rather than being trapped on the low ground where they could have a free pass at any of the probes down here, which would be this guy, that guy right there. Oh, and this guy. So he ultimately loses a single probe, which is not the worst thing in the world. Just 2 workers killed totally for a 6 pool. Not the worst thing, but he did lose all 3 of his sentries, which is quite a lot of energy and quite a lot of gas that he's never going to get back. 700 gas saved up for PoSeIdOn. It's going to be very interesting to see which direction he decides to spin that gas. He does have the Roach Warren up. Could definitely mainline Roach production. Looks like he's pulled off all the drones on the first extractor. So stepping back a little bit on the gas production of things, but I'm sure he's going to be teching higher. Maybe get some mutas out. He's tried cheese once and it did not succeed in decimating the probe line. But when you fail once, you can always go again. Something to keep in mind though, static defense is already in place to protect that probe line. So probably won't be the most beneficial of decisions to go with mutas. Let me see what else. What other decisions can he do? I mean, he could take a third. He could take a third. He's got those mobile spine crawlers, even though they're positioned right now at the natural, doesn't mean they can't be moved to protect that third. Also, those spine crawlers could go to town already on the destructible debris, just so that that pathway could open up, and with that third, you could get out that Roach Hydra army and just crush whenever Jiang decides to move out with his units composition. You can see Jiang doesn't really have a saturation down at the natural. He hasn't decided to get on any gas yet, but man, that harvester count is just 31 to 23. It's just so small. 5 more drones on the way. Absolutely what PoSeIdOn needs to do. He needs to get his economy up and running. He's pretty safe for now. I mean, he's got plenty of roaches out on the field, plenty of spines, plenty of defenses just to hold this expansion, but he doesn't need to be intimidated by what Jiang has. I think PoSeIdOn was hoping that this was going to be over very, very quickly, and for whatever reason it hasn't gone his way, and so he's on the back foot, and I don't think he's comfortable here. It's just a little bit awkward watching this. And so he goes for the third, which is a great decision. Good decision. You know, if your Protoss has 2 base, you should go 3 base if you're Zerg. That's an excellent rule of thumb. However, he's delayed for quite a long time. We're almost at the 12-minute mark now. And all of a sudden, Protoss is beginning to make units. It's making Immortals, it's making Stalkers. And this is going to be an intimidating army in a couple of minutes. And an intimidating army that PoSeIdOn's not going to have the infrastructure to deal with. The destructible debris are still up, so reinforcing that third is going to be difficult. And the creep spread is non-existent, and that's going to make the spine crawlers have a hard time at readjusting their position to protect that third. However, destructible debris have gone down. It looks like Jiang's making motions like he wants to take a third, which means that aggression out of him is going to be slightly delayed. Jiang does expose his army, especially the Immortal Heavy army, to that Overseer, so PoSeIdOn's going to know what he has to deal with. The +1/1 is already done. We can see level 2 weapons on the way. Another 6 roaches coming out. They're very aggressively stanced up by the watchtower, even though the 3 Immortals have been exposed. I mean, those roaches are going to absolutely melt whenever they see those Immortals in, face to face. The third is up. What is our harvester count looking like? 37 to 31. Alright, he's narrowing the gap. He's also getting out a bunch of Zerglings, which are going to be very helpful against the Immortals. What it'll really come down to, will Jiang control his sentries maybe a little bit better than he did on that previous engagement, where he kind of whiffed the force field here to hold those roaches out. But he was scrambling and he was pulling them back, and ultimately he really nailed the force field here to keep them up into the main. The Immortals coming up, meeting the Roaches, immediately getting pulled back by Poseidon because he knows that that's absolutely a losing battle. Going to take a couple of pot shots, but ultimately I think this is just a tech switch to Infestor Zergling, which is going to be a great unit composition if Poseidon can buy enough time to get it up. Oh, a quick blink from Jiang. I totally missed that research being built. All of a sudden, the Stalkers are totally away from the Immortal, which is taking quite a lot of damage. Still has 100 health, though. So it'll take just a little bit more to bring that down, focusing down from the Roaches. It succeeds in taking down all the sentries and one of the Immortals, but the Stalkers are still up and are still going to cut down all of the Roaches. All of a sudden, Poseidon does not have a standing army that's capable of stopping Jiang, and Jiang can 1A up into this third base. The destructible debris have not gone down. There is no creep connecting these two bases, so this third is going to be in quite a lot of trouble. Oh, massive Zerglings sweeping in, getting a fantastic surround on the one unit that could save Jiang's main army, which is the sentries with their force fields. Yeah, the number of Stalkers is actually good enough to deal with those Zerglings for now. I did not factor in the blink, but with another wave of Zerglings, and they're going to be protected by a couple of Infestors shortly, getting a fantastic surround on the two Immortals. Big win there. That basically evens up the loss of that expansion for Poseidon. Is taking down those two, 250 minerals each. 500 minerals right there. That's not bad. There was no saturation at the third. It doesn't do anything to his economy. And it's not like he has the harvesters to work off of that third base anyway. Jiang, though, 50 harvesters already working on that saturation down at the third. He's going to get some gas there, and he's going to go into even higher tech. So as this game progresses, Poseidon's going to find himself in an increasingly worse position. He needs to catch up, whether it's in upgrades, tech, or base count. He needs to be up in one category. Currently, he's down in all three. So he's in a lot of trouble. And this is going to make it worse for him. Blinking in this really nice shift key blink micro, but unfortunately the Zerglings were already in position. A fantastic fungal growth going down, holding the Stalkers in position so the Zerglings can absolutely go to town. Massive loss for Jiang, even though it was a fantastic idea to do it. Absolutely perfect idea to do it, just lacking a little bit on the luck. I think Poseidon just had his units in the correct position, especially with the fungal growth going down almost instantly on that attack. All of a sudden, Jiang and Poseidon are neck and neck in food, and Jiang has to pull back. He's just not capable of holding on to the map control against Zerg after losing so many Stalkers. I mean, he probably lost at least half of his Stalkers. The third is up, though. In economy, it's definitely in his favor. I mean, 31 to 60. It's Zerg is definitely behind, definitely in trouble, especially as that higher tech Colossi is coming out. Jiang's going to have to make something happen, and I think he can if he decides to push it to third. The fungal growths are not quite recharged. Just one of them has enough to throw down a fungal. And the units that are coming out from Jiang are going to be very helpful in this coming engagement. The force fields can hold back the Zerglings, which are really your damage-dealing units. As long as the fungal growths absolutely hit and the force fields whiff, Poseidon should be able to come out on the head. But unless this engagement goes drastically in Poseidon's favor, I don't see him coming out on top. There goes the force fields, cutting the units in half, still allowing a small bit of gap up top. But even the momentary delay of those force fields was enough to allow Jiang to just push in and absolutely decimate Poseidon's ground force. Up by 50 supply now. It's definitely in a bad spot for Poseidon right now. That third base has gone up. The third base is just now being built for Poseidon, so he's going to be behind on economy and army tab. Has he worked on any other upgrades? No, 0-0. What type of tech can we expect? He's got Hive, so that's fantastic. He needs to get down a Spire or something to deal with the Colossi and the Void Ray that's currently being built. We do have a single Void Ray, probably going to be used for Overlord harassment more than anything else, but we don't see any Overlord placement from Poseidon at all. They're all just hanging around in the main base, providing some fantastic detection there. Jiang is getting his Nexus on the left side for his fourth base, which means that he's basically switching the role of Zerg Protoss being up one base, up on supply, and has just a little bit of money to spare, in this case gas. Ultralisk Cavern being built though for Poseidon, and that's going to be very helpful because those massive units can crush force fields from the sentries, and they also do some massive AoE damage whenever they can get in there and start scything their units. Stargate, even though that void ray was built, it looks like it was used to make a fleet beacon. We have the mothership on the way. Fantastic. PoSeIdOn is going to have to deal with the cloaked death ball from Protoss, and that is going to be a hard time. I'm not going to lie. Also, the High Templar archives just now finishing, so those Templars with their heavy AoE storms are going to be a fantastic answer to the unupgraded Zerglings currently out on the field, but they're not going to be very useful against Ultralisks, I'm not going to lie. So it's basically going to come down to how many Ultralisks are in that army, and can they get close enough to actually start doing damage before they're cut down by the combined fire of the Immortals, the Colossi, and the Stalkers. I don't think PoSeIdon's going to be able to afford too many of the Ultralisks that he needs, because his saturation is going to be low. I mean, he's at 40 harvesters at this point. At the 22-minute mark, you really want around 70 or 80 drones for Zerg, and he's not anywhere near that because he's taken so many heavy hits from Jiang. It's really been back and forth. I think PoSeIdOn has had a very hard time adjusting, but he has adjusted well. I mean, he's gotten back up to tier 3 tech, and that is a good game. And he's definitely giving Jiang a run for his money, but there's no doubt in my mind that he is behind 2 Ultralisks to 2 Colossi. But the supporting units for the tier 3 is really what sets you apart. He's got High Templars to Infestors, plenty of Stalkers for the Roaches, as well as some Mortals thrown into the mix. But then the real supporting units is these Harvester counts, the ability to re-macro after this engagement happens. It looks like both players right now is just getting as many superfluous upgrades as possible. Level 2 range on the way, which is weird because, you know, you'd expect the Ultralisks to be benefiting from the upgrades, but, you know, to each his own. He wants to upgrade his Roaches, maybe intending on switching back to Hydra Roach after this engagement. I'm not sure. He does have the Spire on the way, though. Get some Corruptors out to deal some damage to those Colossus. It looks like Jiang is through with waiting at the 175 supply mark, moving out with just a fantastically intimidating army. Got to be very careful here because this is going to be very tense for PoSeIdOn. He does not want this 4th to fall, but I really don't know how he can save it. Here we go, pushing in. Both players throwing down all the storms and infested Terrans as they can possibly muster. Unfortunately, it looks like all the Zerglings have just melted from the combined fire of the Colossi, and the Ultralisks have been doing quite a lot of damage, but they weren't able to engage the middle just chunk of that death ball to do the most AoE damage possible. And all of a sudden, PoSeIdOn, who as a Zerg you'd expect to have a bunch of money to re-macro, but as someone who's been put on the back foot of the economy, really doesn't have the money necessary to produce as many Roaches and Ultralisks as you need to deal with this force quickly. Only a few Roaches spawning out in staggered groups. They're not going to be able to engage in force, and they're going to get cut down very quickly. Jiang right back up to where he was pre-battle, and all of a sudden you've got 170 to 51 supply. Poor PoSeIdOn having to tap out in that manner. It was a good game. It was a very good game. Jiang, again, MVP. This guy right here. It was fantastic. This game was fantastic, and you are fantastic because you're watching my cast. If you guys have a game you want me to cast, you could PM me here or on Reddit. One way or another, I will see you guys later. I am Big and Scary.